This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast. You like college football, you like college basketball, this is the podcast for you, talking about each. We're talking a little bit more college basketball in this one. Got a little bit of football, looking at the NFL draft. We're going to look at the ACC really in this one. We're looking at Duke and how far Marvin Bagley can carry them this season. We're also looking at the Tar Heels of, are they in trouble? Brandon thinks so. We'll find out more about that later on. And then we're looking at NFL draft. Could Saquon Barkley be the numero uno pick in the NFL draft? But a little housekeeping before we begin. Number one, if you like what we're doing here, want to help support us, go ahead and check out patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That link is in the description. Also in the description, you want to get your hands on an MVP t-shirt, go ahead. Every information for that is also in the description down below. Thirdly, if you are on, is that a word? Is thirdly a word? I don't think it's a word. I think I created it. Thirdly, if you're on iTunes, or if you have an iTunes, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating for the Primetime Podcast. We would really appreciate it. And last but not least, go ahead and check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. Bookmark it. That's where everything, videos, podcasts, articles, everything goes for MVP, so you never miss a single thing. But let's get into the topics, Brandon. Today, a little quick intro because we got a lot to talk about. First, we're focusing pretty much on the ACC. Like I said, Duke, North Carolina. Let's focus on Duke first. And I know that this segment, like part Duke fans might say, but guys, we blew out the Notre Dame Fighting Irish yesterday, 88-66. However, last two games, I'm a little concerned for the Dukies, Brandon, because you look at the game they played 2 games ago against Virginia where they lost 65-63. And when I look at Duke, you had 30 points from Bagley, 14 from Carter, and then 5, 6, and 8 from the rest of the starters, Duval, Allen, and Trent Jr. The only 2 off the bench were O'Connor and DeLure, who came off the bench. And then you look at, you got the, 22-point win against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But your starters played really well. The rest of your bench didn't really do much. I know more of your bench played. A little bit of them were in trash time. But White and Bolden got the buff of the minutes, only 5 points between them. So the thing I want to ask you, with Duke, it seems like Bagley is the main guy that we all look at from this starting group. Can he be enough to carry Duke and this starting 5 this season?
Well, it can't just be Marvin Bagley. And as we've seen, you look at the games where they've lost. Mm-hmm. When they lost the game against NC State, a couple of weeks back, and then they lose this game against Virginia over the weekend. Bagley has 30 points in that game. Mm-hmm. Who else is stepping up? Nobody. So I think that right now Marvin Bagley, I think, is doing his job. He's doing what he needs to do. He's chipping in their wins. He's really stepping up in their losses. He's the reason why their losses aren't blowout losses, because of his 30 points. Duke needs to be able to have some other guys. Grayson Allen in the loss over the weekend had 5 points. Grayson Allen cannot have 5 points. Grayson Allen, when you say Grayson Allen's name, 1, you think of tripping, and 2, you think of a scorer.
He had another one of those against Virginia. He had I think it was a trip attempt, because as the guy went around the screen, he kicked out his leg. I'm calling it a trip attempt.
Well, I want to talk about the number 2 thing that you think of is him being a scorer. Mm-hmm. And you remember the championship classic that we saw when Duke
he was a
played.
Freshman.
No. That we saw this year.
Oh, in Chicago.
When they played Michigan State. Yes. I mean, the guy was lighting up the scoreboard. He was so good.
Especially from 3.
And that is exactly what I was going to say. To have just 5 points, Grayson Allen, I think that we should be talking a little bit more about, will Grayson Allen and the rest of the cast step up to the plate? Because right now, Marvin Bagley, again, you look in the games that they've lost, he's been the only contributor. Basically, the only contributor. I mean, guys like Carter Jr., guys like Duval, guys like Allen, they're not doing anything. They're not helping this Duke team. They're reasons why Duke has lost. And Marvin Bagley, again, he can only do so much, and he can't be the sole guy to be depended upon for Duke when it comes down the stretch. He's already doing a ton. Like I said, he's chipping in. He's getting his 20 points, his 16 points in the wins, and he's certainly playing well in the losses. It's got to be these other guys. They cannot have close games again. You talk about the Virginia, a team that is apparently very good this year again.
Well, they're well coached.
You can't. Well, they're always going to be well coached under the coach that they have over there. But I think that right now what Duke needs to be more worried about is, do they have the guys in close situations like that, in big games like that, outside of Marvin Bagley? Because we already know what Bagley's most likely going to bring to the table. When it's a close game, when it's a big game, when things are on the line, Bagley is there. What are these other guys doing? Are they putting out as much production as they can? The answer is simply no.
Here's what concerns me about this team is, look at the North Carolina game. We've got Bagley at 34 minutes. Allen has 37. Gary Trent Jr. had 34 minutes. The entire bench, yeah, I know you had a lot of guys play off the bench. The most minutes were White and Bolden at 12 and 14, yet you had 7 total points from your bench. Virginia, 2 guys played, 6 total minutes, didn't have a single point. 2 rebounds were what the collective of them had, only 1 shot between the 2. Then you look at Wake Forest. This was a game that they won by 14. You only have 9 points off of your bench. Go back to Pitt, another big win. You almost win by 30 points. You look at the bench, this was probably the most points that we've seen in some time out of them, and it's right around, if my math is serving me correct, 18 points off the bench. Good amount of points off the bench in that one. Then you go to Miami, only 3 points off the bench. Another Wake Forest game, you get 15 off the bench. However, that's only between 2 players, and that's because O'Connell had 13 points in 15 minutes. Another Pittsburgh win, you get, Robinson gets 10 points off the bench, but then 2, 2, and 8 for the rest of the bench. White didn't even have any points. Then the NC State loss, you only get 4 points. The Florida State loss, you only get 3 points off the bench. And then the Evansville Purple Aces win, where you win 104-40. Well, yeah, of course your bench is going to play some points because they actually played minutes. O'Connell actually played 21 minutes in that game off the bench because you were up by 60 in that one. The thing I worry most about Duke coming into this end of the season and postseason play is, I feel like they are going to be a team when we get to March Madness and the conference tournament games of, unless their starting 5 can go the entire way and be dominant, I don't think they're going to go that far. And the thing I think that is going to come back and bite them in the butt, especially when we get to the conference, the ACC conference tournament, will be most telling, because if you've got guys playing 30-plus minutes per game, that's the time where, I mean, right now you get a few days off. You get that, all right, you get that system of, okay, we're either playing Monday, Wednesdays are the big ones, Saturday. Like, for example, I'll relate it to when both of you and I were in college. The athletes that played for our basketball team, unless it was non-conference play, at this point in the season, it's like, all right, we're either playing on a rare Tuesday night, but usually it's Wednesdays and Saturdays. That's when we're playing, Wednesdays and Saturdays. So you know exactly when your games are going to be because you get that rhythm. They get to the ACC tournament, that's when I'm going to start putting the magnifying glass on them, because if they've got Bagley, Allen, and Trent playing 30-plus minutes and the rest of the starters, not the other 2, not far behind, if you have to play 3 games in 3 days or 4 games in 4 games, that might take a little bit, it might be a little bit more taxing on the team. Or when we get to March Madness, when it's like, all right, we won on Thursday, now we got to get ready to go on Saturday. And I know you get a week off in between those, but how will the stamina be when we get late in the season for the starters?
Well, I think this is something that is odd to me from a Duke team that in a game like Virginia, where you're only having really one guy. You had Bagley with 30, and you had someone else with 14. I can't even remember who had
Wendell.
Okay,
Wendell Carter
had 14 points. Everyone else couldn't even crack double figures in points. That doesn't happen, really. That does not happen for a Duke team, and that is so odd. But what also is interesting is that in points per game, according to ESPN, which they're not always accurate, but according to ESPN, points per game, Duke has just over 90 points per game. That's second in all of college basketball. That's impressive. And I feel like for Duke, they either all come to play and it's 20, 22, 17, 16, 15, or it's 30, 10, 7, 9, and that's what you get.
So it's all or nothing.
It's
is what
all
you're
or
saying.
nothing. That's absolutely what I'm saying. It seems to be all or nothing. But leading it back again to your question that you had originally asked, Marvin Bagley can take this Duke team very far on his own. But it needs to be the rest of the crew. It really does. Because he cannot do every single thing. If a team, especially when you get into the postseason, you get into the tournament, and teams know Marvin Bagley has got to be keyed in on. Can you stop him? No, he's not a stoppable guy. Can you limit him? You could, if you were able to figure that out. But if you're able to figure that out, then you leave it to everyone else. Can they do it? Can they shoulder that? And quite honestly, I don't know if I'd say yes right now. I don't know if I would be able to say yes. Early in the season, I think I'd be able to say, yeah, that'd be just fine. But lately, it doesn't seem that way.
Well, the interesting thing, and I was just pulling up, there's 3 games that I was looking at, is Florida, Texas, Michigan State. These are all caliber teams that Duke could meet potentially, unless we get like an East Tennessee or a VCU or a Butler from when Brad Stevens was there kind of playing Cinderella. But in those games, Michigan State I'm going to use as the anomaly because that was pretty much, and we saw that game live at the UC. Bagley only played 10 minutes because he got poked in the eye, left with 4 points. But also, that was a game where I feel like early on in the season, you don't know what each team is. Like, you're coming in with a brand new group of guys. You don't know exactly what this team is going to be, and you're kind of just feeling it out there, trying to make it work early on. But by the time they played Texas and Florida, they were gelling a little bit. However, when you get to the Texas game, the big thing I look for in that one, yet again, bench only had 4 total points between DeLure and O'Connell. And O'Connell played 29 minutes. 29 minutes, went 1 of 3. Did have 6 boards, so contributed there. 2 assists, a turnover, and only 2 points in that game. They're not getting the bench production. Also in that one, Bamba fouled out of that game, and once Bamba was out, it was open reign for Bagley. Just toss it up. They don't got a big guy down there to guard him, and he was able to just flush it home. And then the third one when they played Florida, only a 3-point victory, had to come back from a deficit in that one. Only have 3 players off your bench play, and you get 11 points. That's the thing that I think is going to kill this team. Not kill it, but will hurt this team in the end, is going to be the depth of this team. Can somebody off the bench contribute, or is it going to be ride or die on the starting 5? Because looking at right now, if the ACC tournament started today, Brandon, Duke would be the 3rd seed. They'd be the number 3 seed right behind Louisville and Virginia. And if we go based off of what the ACC tournament is, top 4 teams get a 2-round bye. So you get the first day, I'm going off of last year. So Tuesday, you get the first round games. The second round is on Wednesday. You automatically get to the quarterfinals. So if you're a top 4 team, and that's Duke, you would basically have to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 games in 3 days. However, here's an interesting thing. With Duke and the games they have, right now, Clemson, as we're recording this, playing a team that we're going to talk about next in North Carolina. Could I get a score up? Do you have a score update for me before I make this point?
It was 30-17.
30-17. So if that score holds, you guys will know the ending before we do. You'll be listening to this after the game. But that could mean Clemson ties. That means Duke 1 loss away. NC State, Florida State, right there at 4 losses. They could have tiebreakers over Duke because they beat them. God forbid Duke falls out of the top, to me, out of the top 4. And Duke fans might be saying, but Ricky, doesn't matter. We were the number 5 seed last year, won the whole ACC tournament. We'll do it again. However, last year's team wasn't like this one. I wasn't saying last year, wow, look at the depth on this team. You don't got any. I was saying, okay, they got some bench players that can come in and play. This year, I'm looking at it and saying, man, if those starters get tired by the time you get a Virginia team on Friday, good luck. You're not beating that defensive team. And that's my worry for Duke is when we get to the postseason, it comes off of matchups. And are they going to run into A, the wrong matchup, and B, be too tired to overcome that matchup?
I think that with what you're saying in terms of being tired and being worn down and everything like that, I think it actually has a lot of merit. And you look at a game like, I'll take the last 2 games just for easy 2 examples, and because it's current. In the game against Virginia, you have 3 guys play the whole game. You have 2 people come in off the bench to combine for 6 minutes and 0 points. You lose that game. You then go into the game against Notre Dame. You win that game by 22 points. You have 6 guys come off the bench. They combine for 7 points. They get decent minutes. White gets 14, Bolden 12. Everyone else kind of chips in 8, 5, 3, 2. But they only have 7 points. They didn't need it. They would have been fine without it. Mm-hmm. But again, do they have, and it goes to your question, do they have the depth? Do they have, okay, anyone can have depth. We could, ask anyone to come in and play, but do you have the talent? How many times do we say that, Ricky, where, you have someone who can come in for you, but are they going to be able to do the same thing you can do? If they can't, well, then you really don't have depth. And the next point is, how tired are they going to be? How worn down are they going to be? Can they match those points? Can they match those minutes significantly? And I don't know. I think that what you're saying it brings up a great point. I think it really makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's something that Duke really has to look at right now and see, especially if they're having 2, 3 guys play the entire game in a really big game, well-fought game, tiresome game, and then say, oh yeah, you're also going to be playing again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There comes a point when Duke is going to be worn down to the bone and not play up to par with where they should be because they have nothing left in the tank.
No, and that's exactly it. And the one thing that I was trying to find, and of course the webpage wouldn't come up for me because God forbid the NCAA keep a box score from last year, but I pulled up the, which game is this? Was this last year's game? The 77-74 win for Villanova over the Tar Heels. Just to show a little bit of what I'm talking about, you look at this game, and I'm focusing on this national championship game. You look at Villanova, the winning team had their 5 starters play 32, 21, 38, 37, 22. Their bench, they only had 3 guys play, but 10, 25, and 15. And Booth, the guy that played the most minutes off the bench, 20 points for that team. 20 points. You look at NC, who lost that game, they had Bryce Johnson at 31. You had Kennedy Meeks, so this was 2016.
Yeah, this
Kennedy
was not last
Meeks,
year.
you had 21. Justin Jackson, 34. Marcus Page, 34. Barry, 37. Kind of sound familiar what we're looking at? You had Hicks off the bench at 20 minutes, only 4 points.
Yeah.
4 points, 4 rebounds. You had Pinson, 12 minutes, didn't get a single point. James, 2 minutes, didn't get a single point. Britt, 9 minutes, got 2 points. Which team won? The team that had, they only had 3 players off the bench, but they had that player do more with their minutes that they had. I think if Duke is the team, one of these teams, and you had to pick, hey, Ricky, what team is Duke going to be? They're going to be NC State. Or not NC State. They're going to be NC. They're going to be the ones where it's like, man, their bench did nothing. And this kid got 20 minutes off the bench, and he only got that many points. That's what I fear. But I wouldn't be surprised if Duke doesn't make the championship game at all this year.
Bold statement. But I think that... I think that
it wouldn't be a primetime podcast if I didn't make a hot take, Brandon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I wouldn't want it any other way. But going back to that point of that game is that, again, it was a close game. It was a last-second shot. But I think that you just kind of felt that Villanova, they had it that night. They had that good feel because they had that flow in and out. They had guys that were not tired. They were still feeling good on the floor, everything like that. And that's, there's a lot to be said for that. Duke, however, now going back to my point of view, saying that's a bold statement to make, but for Duke to get there, and you look at an ACC that's actually pretty darn good. You look at a Clemson team that's pretty darn good. You look at a North Carolina team that stinks right now, but they're going to hang around. You look at an NC State team that's caused trouble for Duke and North Carolina. Virginia, of course. Louisville's been played well within the conference. There's some people for Duke to have to go through, and it will be interesting to see how they're able to hold up in terms of, do they have to have everybody out on the floor for the entirety of the game in terms of all 5 starters, most of them go in those 40 minutes, and then having to do that consecutive game after game after game, and can Duke hold up after that? And what kind of effects does that have then going into the NCAA tournament? Well,
and I'll use this because last year's, I don't know why I thought last year was Villanova, North Carolina. Completely forgot that my main pick in that the Zags were in the national championship. But you even look at last year's game, and this will be my last point. The Tar Heels off their bench, 7 total points, and Bradley had 18, May had 10, Britt had 13, and Woods had 3. Basically, I look at that one. Karnowski has a better game. Matthews has a better game. The Zags might win that one. Like, that's what it came down to, was Karnowski got in foul trouble, wasn't out there a lot, only finished with 9. You had Matthews, who had played well for the Zags all year, only had 6. It just, like, Collins off the bench, 14 minutes, but only had 9 points in that game. That's one where I feel like that's what Duke needs. Duke will need, like, hey, we might not have the production off the bench. We got to make sure they have a bad game and their stars don't get the game that they're used to getting. I'm just not confident in the Dukies coming into the end of the season. The regular season, they'll be fine, but postseason and the tournament. Any last thoughts before we move on into NC and the Tar Heels?
To wrap it all up, put a bow on it, Marvin Bagley, again, the title of this, dealing with him. Without him, Duke is not the number 4 team in the country right now. They're not 19-3. They're far worse off, and they are losing a lot more games. They would not be as good without him. I mean, it's simple as that. He has been a huge presence for them. He's been a huge factor for them. He's done a whole lot, and at times he's been their team when other guys just have not been showing up, especially as of late. So Marvin Bagley, he will and can take them far, but he can't be the only one.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.